Good morning, everyone. This is Mike O'Malley here with the Hurricane Outlook and discussion for October 3rd, 2022, code on 11 a.m. Eastern Time. We have a lot to talk about today, including the threat for another tropical cyclone to be brewing in the Caribbean over the next couple of days. Could it impact the United States? So let's go and jump straight into everything. Taking a look here at the tropical Atlantic this morning, we noticed that we have two systems out there currently worth monitoring. We have a system that has a high probability, 70% over the next couple of days as this moves to the northwest. This is currently located near the Cabo Verde Islands. And then we have another system right now located closer to the Windward Islands, a couple hundred miles away from there. And this is moving westward currently with a 40% chance of development over the next couple of days. If you take a look here at the tropical weather outlook from this morning, we notice the two systems currently out there in the tropical Atlantic. First of all, to the southwest of the Cabo Verde Islands. This again with a 70% chance. And this system now moving into the Windward Islands currently with a 40% chance of development as this moves westward into the Caribbean, where we will have to watch for some additional development thereafter as conditions gradually become favorable. If we take a look here at the visible satellite imagery for Invest Area 91L, this is our system moving into the Windward Islands today. We notice that we do have an area of shower and thunderstorm activity still disorganized at this very moment and producing some rotation, especially in the mid-levels, but you notice that there are some arc clouds moving away from the system right now. This indicates the presence of dry air, and it's going to have a little bit of a tough time getting its act together for the next couple of days. Looking at water vapor satellite imagery, we see an upper level low right now that's going to be imparting a little bit of shear over top of our system as it tries to move westward over the next couple of days. Now, this will ultimately increase a little bit of convective activity similar to the genesis of Ian. However, again, this system will be imparting a little bit of dry air and shear into the mid and upper levels of this system, not allowing for a coherent vortex to stack together and inherently causing the storm to struggle. Looking at the GFS forecast, this is the 06Z Ron valve for 8 a.m. this morning. We're looking at the 850 millibar vorticity, or the spin in the atmosphere at about 5,000 feet off the ground. We notice that we have three systems out there in the Atlantic right now. We have the remnants of Hurricane Ian. This is actually trying to make somewhat of a comeback, but will probably not be a tropical entity, but could still bring some rain and wind to portions of North Carolina and the Northeast coast. And then we also have Invest Area 91L and this system off to the southwest of the Cabo Verde Islands. We notice that in the GFS forecast, nothing really gets going except for this system that is near the southwest Cabo Verde Islands right now. This is the system that manages to get going. But if we notice on the GFS forecast, there is really nothing that develops. And then 91L just kind of meanders around in the Caribbean and maybe tries to get going out here to the south of Jamaica. If we look at the upper level wind environment here on the European ensemble here, the EPS, we'll go back to the 06Z run. We notice again, here's this upper level low that we've been talking about, but the overall pattern seems pretty favorable once this gets to kind of again near Jamaica, although there might be a little bit of shear on the backside of this upper level anticyclone here if our storm's not moving fast enough. So it remains to be seen whether or not this is actually able to go on to become a tropical cyclone, but the upper level environment does seem pretty favorable over the next couple of days, and if our storm can actually align itself under this upper level anticyclone, it looks pretty favorable, and the environment there certainly isn't screaming hostile conditions. So the environment will certainly favor some type of tropical activity, whether it just be moisture or whether this be an actual tropical cyclone. Now, if we look here at the European ensembles here, doesn't really show much with this wave at all. In fact, you can see that most models aren't even particularly interested in this at all. And this is one thing that we'll have to monitor. But we do notice that there's a little bit of a kind of a perk up in the ensemble support as this gets closer to portions really of the southwestern Caribbean. And maybe something tries to get going there, but nothing really to worry about at this moment. We can see one possible scenario that could potentially pan out here. This is the H4 forecast for Invest 91L. This is the 06E run. We're looking at the 200 millibar wind, so up at about 39,000 feet. This is about for 2 p.m. today. We notice that the storm again has a tough time organizing for several days, but eventually explodes here and rapidly deepens as it nears the Windward Islands. Really by Thursday. Now, the H4 forecast is known to have an aggressive bias with developing tropical cyclones and invests with no recon data imported into it. So it is going to be a little bit hard to actually say whether this is a legitimate thing or not. Either way, it seems like, again, it's going to have a tough time battling this upper level low up here that will be inducing some shear. And there's also a little bit of shear that's going to be imparted from another upper level ridge right here. Similar, in fact, very similar to Ian. So I'm not really sure this actually gets super deep in through here and actually is able to become a hurricane close to the Windward Islands. I'm not really buying this solution. But even on the HWAR forecast, even the most aggressive run here, we notice that this is going to be battling shear for several days. We notice that there's kind of another upper level trough here that's going to be digging in within about 5 days. And so this is going to be creating a little bit of hostile conditions over top of our system, even if it's strong at this point. And we notice if we look here at the relative humidity, even though this is a full-blown hurricane on this particular run, again, not really focused on the intensity, but more so this is just focused on the environmental conditions around it because it does pretty good with that. And we notice that there is a large bout of dry air that's going to be in through here. So again, development chances, if any, I mean, there probably will be some type of development, but the overwhelming majority of models are not really suggesting that this becomes strong, especially quickly, like the HWARF is forecasting here, so this is likely not a viable solution. Looking at the spaghetti plots, you can see most of the tracks continue this into the southern portion of the Caribbean, and even just off the coast there of Venezuela and northern South America. Again, a track closer towards Trinidad and Tobago and Grenada seems pretty likely at this point. However, again, at this particular point, there is no threat for that area other than some gusty winds and heavy rainfall. But in terms of a hurricane threat for that area, I'm just not really seeing it. In terms of the model guidance here for the intensity forecast, we can see that some models do indicate that this could become a tropical storm, and some models keep this under tropical storm strength. Again, the HWARF forecast right now, the most aggressive one at a Category 2 peak. Obviously, this is pretty unlikely to happen, at least as of this minute, because there's just not really the environmental conditions, at least in the short and medium range, to make this become anything that strong. So again, for the Windward Islands, I'm not really expecting anything significant, but could still bring some gusty winds and heavy rainfall to the area, but no hurricane threat that I am seeing as of this minute. So the weather forecast for portions of the Eastern Caribbean basically just calls for the potential for some showers and thunderstorms, especially down there in the central and eastern part of the Caribbean, where 91L could eventually track. This includes places like Trinidad, Tobago, places even like Barbados, with a threat for just some isolated passing showers across portions of Puerto Rico and Hispaniola at this point. Certainly nothing to be concerned about and nothing on the immediate radar at this point, but it still could cause some inclement conditions, especially down there across portions of the Windward Islands as this passes through, but nothing that strong or nothing that y'all can't handle down there. So before I leave you guys for today, this is the maximum winds that we recorded in Hurricane Ian down there in Arcadia, Florida. This is the sustained wind in green and the wind gust there in blue. We noticed that the maximum observable sustained wind was about 90 knots or 105 miles per hour, and this likely could have been higher with gusts up towards 130, and this could also be higher as well due to unsafe conditions and not really being able to stay out there in the worst part of the storm. We likely had wind gusts that were closer to 140, maybe even pushing 150 miles per hour at times in the eye wall of Hurricane Ian in Arcadia, Florida. Just incredible. And if you want to see the video, of course, it will be linked above. And make sure to follow because we're going to have a lot more on the documentary of Hurricane Ian, including the entire chase and how that all played out. All right. So with that being said, I do hope you'll have a great rest of your afternoon and evening. Of course, I am Mike O'Malley, and I'll be talking to you guys again some more tomorrow.